Hey everyone, and welcome to the January edition of 3030 of 2020, the first edition, or the first episode in 2020, and man, has January been fun so far. Let's talk about what we're going to be talking about. So, right here, Google has dropped two major updates on us, and there are actually a lot of things that happened this month. I couldn't cover them all because there were so many of them, but I picked out the big ones. So, of course, I'm going to cover the January 2020 core update, what we're seeing from the Conductor side, what I'm hearing in the industry, what other people are talking about and saying. A lot of movement there, another big one, but a lot of more of the same. We'll get into it in a minute. The bigger thing that I'm probably going to spend the most time on today is the featured snippet update, which is just bat crap crazy about what changed there and how quickly it changed. That's something that's really sending a lot of shockwaves through the industry. A lot of fun conversations around that, a lot of not fun results, but at the end of the day, we'll get into that as well. Google has released a new shopping experience. So that's another thing where they're becoming the destination. We'll get into that as well. Google also rolled out favicons and the black ad units like we see on mobile devices to desktop, and then they rolled it back. So there was a slew of bad opinions coming their way, but this is just something that I want to have a conversation about. And also, I am going to talk about our all-new marketplace. And you know me, usually I do not promote product things on this program, but marketplace is the first thing that I worked in tandem with our product team to build, so I'm very proud of it. So I'm going to force it upon you today. So let's get into it because we only have 30 minutes. Number one, the January 2020 core update. What are we seeing over here? So for anyone that does not know, the picture here is a tweet from Google Search Liaison, and basically they announced, as they have been doing, that another broad core update was rolling out on January 13th. So right now, of course, it's called the January 2020 core update because we don't want any silly names anymore. But for the most part, here's what we were seeing. Number one thing that I can say is that it was big. It impacted many sites in a few different verticals, but a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is nothing new, and it kind of continues the trend that we were seeing in 2019. So for the most part, what you're going to see, what we're seeing over here is a lot of your money and your life terms. So again, this is something that we've covered time and time again on the program, that your money, your life are sites or terms that people are searching that could impact your financial health or your actual health or your well-being. So that is something that we saw pretty much every core update in 2019 was addressing this. But once again, those types of terms were hit hard. We saw huge. So I went through our index and also probably spot checked about 150 to 200 sites. That's typically the same group of sites that I'm looking at in various different verticals, across our index and our data set. And we saw huge movement for finance, around this one. And once again, in health niches in particular, we saw a lot of medical systems take a little bit of a roller coaster ride, but this one felt very financial to me. We have a bunch of financial clients and we're tracking a bunch of financial terms. A lot of movement there, a lot of movement in finance. So that's interesting. I'm wondering that if over the last, I wonder if this one was just focused more on the financial sector, whereas the last one seemed to be really focused on the health sector. But with that said, we did see a lot of movement in the health sector as well. Another niche that was hit big with this one that I was noticing just the last couple of days, and also Lily Ray from Path Interactive had released something that was showing a lot of publisher sites, and news type sites that showed high volatility. So she was confirming, what I was seeing there. We saw a lot of big movement. We saw sites. News sites, news organizations, sites like TMZ, really seeing a large impact from this one. I saw something this morning that someone posted, I can't remember who it was, about TMZ, which is why I bring that up, that they saw a huge dip, after this update. So this also had that flavor on it as well. Now, that has nothing to do with your money or your life term. So this was something that definitely impacted that, which again, back throughout 2019, we saw just about every every core update hit those niches, but this one definitely had an extra feel for the news and publishing vertical. So if you're in those verticals and you're feeling that pain, we're seeing that on our end too. But for the most part, again, it's coming back to these big core updates. There aren't any silver bullets. This is just us just targeting a large amount of ranking factors and what they do. As with other core updates, again, saw a lot of featured snippet movement, both positive and negative. I do want to put an asterisk on this that I did look before and I looked after, the featured snippet update, which we will get into next. But even before the snippet, deduplication happened, after this rolled out, I was seeing a lot of, featured snippets, especially people also ask. Results go away or come in. There was a little bit of a roller coaster ride there. But on previous programs, I have said that is something that I have that is something that I have seen even before this. That when one of these broad core updates rolls out, I pretty much have consistently seen featured snippets, especially people also ask, come and go pretty violently. So that's something that kind of remained the same here. We didn't see a lot in the retail vertical, so that's something we track a lot of retail terms here, a lot of retail sites. Did not see a huge roller coaster ride there. The main thing that I saw change for retail, which changed just about for every other vertical, was the people also ask, featured snippets. So that's something that I continued to see. But from core terms and things of that nature, did not see that much of a roller coaster ride for retail. So for the most part, all in all, pretty much a carbon copy, in my opinion, of a lot of the other updates that we've seen in many ways. The people also ask, featured snippets going up and down, your money or your life terms, being hit, not surprising. A little bit more of a finance feel, but we have seen finance volatility in the past, so that's not like it's coming out of left field. The news and publisher verticals, being hit as well. That's a little bit different, but we have seen some things about that. And minimal volatility in retail vertical, at least for the sites that we're tracking in terms that we're tracking. I have not seen major movement in retail across a lot of these. So I still believe that Google is trying to find the right place on the dial for the your money, your life terms. And I think those terms, those updates might have bled into news and publishing, just because of, the whole fake news thing, trying to find from legitimate sources and things of that nature. So those things all kind of play into one another. So I'm not really surprised to see the news and publisher stuff, since we have seen a little bit of that in the past. But at the end of the day, nothing really crazy on this one. It was just big, and we saw a lot of movement again in health and finance verticals, your money, your life terms. Again, which is not a huge surprise, but we also did see big movement in news and publisher verticals. Not a lot in the retail vertical, but a lot of featured snippets, mainly the people also ask results. A lot of ups and downs there, which we have seen in the past. So that's what we're seeing at Conductor. If you're seeing something different, or you have something that you'd like to share, I'd love to hear it. Shoot me an email or shoot me a note in the platform. But moving on, let's get into the bigger one, which was the featured snippet update. Right now, so if you see Danny Sullivan's tweet over here, if a web page listing is elevated into the featured snippet position, we no longer repeat the listing. So take into account, if you had as an example, if you had a answer box result, typically you would have the traditional result as well, usually in the top result, right? So you would have the answer box and you would have the traditional result. Google is quote unquote now deduplicating that effort, and you will only receive the featured snippet if you were awarded, but you will not get the traditional ranking as well. This is a huge deal, and this rolled out around on January 22nd. It was global, and they literally hit a switch, which is why it was really crazy. This is not something that they rolled out. This is something that someone hit a button, and this went live, and all of a sudden, people started to lose their traditional rankings in lieu of the featured snippet that they have been awarded. And that is a big deal. Now, Of course, the dual listing is a big deal, but what we're seeing is that a lot of people around the industry, and I can see this in Conductor's data as well, that traffic performance for folks that had both the listings have gone down, in some cases dramatically. Had someone in here the other day who was saying that one of their customers for like a highly transactional page that both had the featured snippet and had the traditional result had that page down 30% because they had lost the traditional result in lieu of the featured snippet. So for me, I am, that's something that I started to look into, and we are seeing the same thing, in many different cases where I have seen decreases in traffic, but also saw major decreases in, of course, the amount of rankings. Because when you think about it like this, there are a lot of different types of featured snippets. One of the ones that's suspect right now, which Google probably is pretty much already fixed, but if you own the right-handed featured snippet, so let's say that your URL was in the knowledge graph panel, right? And you also had the #1 featured snippet. Google would only give you the right-handed one because that technically is a featured snippet, and you would lose the #1 traditional ranking at the top of the page, which of course has crazy click-through rate. So a lot of people were in that scenario, and they lost a lot of traffic there. Now, Google has actually backtracked on that. Has backtracked on that because if you are one of the folks who are in Search Console quite a bit, you would notice that featured snippets are not counted as the #1 result. They are counted as the #11 result. So that's something that a lot of people really started to freak out, and I'll show you some examples in a minute. That in Search Console, their average click-through rate and their average position tanked on January 22nd because of this update. Which of course, freaks people out. I was freaked out. I was like, holy crap, like that's not good to see that. So at the end of the day, that's something that Google actually backtracked on, because it was really freaking people out. And we'll get into some examples in a minute. Another note on this is that the deduplication does not apply to video snippets. So if you have a video snippet, you can still have the traditional ranking as well if you had the dual ranking. So that's something to note as well. But let's talk about the rolling back on the dedupe. So right now, if you go, and this is something I just did, I did this last night. So again, Google is actively fixing this. They probably already did. They said it wasn't something that was going to take an egregious amount of time. But just as an example here, I Googled collaborative workspace. Everyone knows that we work with WeWork, and as you can see here, WeWork both has the featured snippet in the knowledge graph, featured snippet panel, or the knowledge graph type one, but they also are showing up at the top as well. So that's an example of Google, and again, this is of last night, so I didn't check it again this morning. I probably should have, but at the end of the day, you can still see that they own both of the listings. So this is something, so this is confirmation that they are, that they are working on this, and that they have, backed off of the deduplication in this way when someone has the right-hand, knowledge graph, type result, because that is not better for that site. That actually really screws that site if you lose this, if you lose the ranking on the left in lieu of the ranking on the right, because the click-through rates for those are wildly different. So that's a good example of one thing that Google is working on. And also, I am still seeing duplicate listings, and people also ask. I actually have a question out to the folks over there just to see, because they never really clarified anything about people also ask. And since with the core update where I saw, again, a ton of fluctuation in people also ask, like I've seen in the past, I'm still seeing dual rankings there as well. So if you have a people also ask result, you are still getting the top result or one of the top results in the traditional manner. So I haven't really found a lot of communication, about how much this impacts people also ask. So I kind of want an answer to that, because I'm seeing this all over the place. I probably checked 100 keywords yesterday that I saw the same exact thing where the site had a people also ask. I mean, of course, it comes down to, it's probably anything that's readily visible. Of course, when people also ask, you have to click into it. So that's probably playing a factor there, because that wouldn't be fair to the site that, for this one, for example, for Wetsuit Warehouse, they would have the top ranking, but to see their people also ask listing, you would have to click into, should I store my wetsuit inside out, for example, and then you would see their results. So my guess is that's what it is, and they're not going to change this, but this is a type of, of result that probably won't be impacted by this, or at least I hope it's not, because that would be really detrimental to a lot of people who have a lot of people also ask, and the traditional ranking, and that's not really fair, because you have to physically click into the people also ask result. So that's something to keep in mind as well, and I think everyone should keep their eye on that. That's something I've been laser focused on. People also ask over the last year, around all of these updates, because that's where I see the most volatility in featured snippets. It's those types of results. So if you own a lot of people also ask, I would definitely keep your eye on that to see if you're losing the traditional ranking at any point in the near future. This is something that I'm super freaked out about, because of course we have a ton of customers over here at Conductor that this would negatively impact, but this would negatively impact everyone in some way, shape, or form if you owned any of these. So that's something just to keep in mind, and something that I'm a little bit weary of, and something I'm a little bit worried about, to be completely honest with you. Just to go back to the other thing that I was talking about. So a lot of people have been saying that, and we just talked about this, that the featured snippet is actually seen as position 11, in Search Console. So of course, when this rolled out, you saw things, and going by the pictures, you can see everything on the right-hand side. Around January 22nd, you started to see these deep tankings like this, right? And then even in the second picture, you saw some bumps, but then some tanks after that. So that was when Google was working it out. But the last one is a site that's seeing, since they've, or have been working on fixing this, they started to see, an increase and a little bit of a recovery there. So at the end of the day, this is something that they're working about. Again, the featured snippet historically has been looked at as position number 11. So if you're in Search Console and you've seen your average ranking, or average position rather, tank around that time, and you're seeing it come back, that's why. It's because Google is moving the featured snippet to the left and basically making it the number 1 result from the right-hand side, and not making it the number 11 result, or the featured snippet not the number 11 result, which is how it calculates it in Search Console. So this is being worked on and being fixed, and ultimately will fix itself. But again, if you're seeing stuff like this, keep your eye on this. Everyone, please keep your eye on this, because this is a lot of people who understand know that this is a major update. This is a major change. Google, I think the last time, Google has had filters for years, to dedupe listings in the results pages. But this one in particular kind of hurts, because it was always nice, because we knew you shouldn't really have duplicate listings. You still saw them every once in a while on really long tail terms, or random terms, or terms that are really specific to a particular business. But losing the traditional result in lieu of the featured snippet result, that kind of opens up a different conversation, because there are situations where I would rather just have the traditional result, and I wouldn't care about the feature result. The right-hand side one is a perfect example. I would much rather have the traditional result than be awarded the knowledge graph type right-hand result, because to me, while there's more real estate and it's very visible, the other one has better click-through rate, and I'd rather have that, because people are trained to click on that, and a lot of people don't even see that URL over there. So I'm hoping that this is just them turning the dial up and down a little bit, and that they're going to land at a good place. But just know that, at least in Search Console, all of that should go back to normal within the next day or so. And if you want to follow, someone who's keeping a really tight eye on it, again, like Glenn Gade keeps a really tight eye on this. Lily Ray is doing a really good job of what she's seeing over at Path Interactive, so you can follow her. And so at the end of the day, that's what we're seeing over at Conductor on this, and what I've heard in the industry. So good for, Google's always fun when Google changes. Am I right, guys? Yeah. Got Blake and Dana here. They're looking at me like, yep, Pat, that's right. It's good times. It's been good times. Good start to 2020. I'm not going to lie to you. So another thing that's changed, or at least introduced, change probably isn't really the right word. Another introduction by Google, and oh good, the animations are working. So anyone who has not seen this, Google has released a new shopping experience. Or right now it seems to be focused mainly on clothing and clothing accessories. But if anyone on the phone here has been in this as long as I have, you might remember Frugal. This actually is kind of like what Frugal was. And, at Search Engine Roundtable, Barry brought this up. He's like, yeah, this is kind of like Frugal. And I agree with that it's funny to see them kind of dive back into this. But so right now what this is, and Google has an official statement on the Webmaster Central blog that you can go look. But for the most part, what it is exactly what you're seeing, right? When you Google something, Google is going to have, for certain things. Right now, again, looks like it's in clothing, shoes, and clothing accessories. Seems to be what they're focused on right now. Is this popular product section, and a different way to filter it and kind of look through it. Now, right here, this to me is a very cool feature, very good function. It takes up all of the screen. If you get into this search, this is Google just appropriating other people's data, as they do, and this is just another step to them becoming the destination for actually physically just buying something from the SERP, which again is something that we've talked about on the program a ton, and something that I have been very, very in tune with. Even when they just released the favicons and the black ad units on desktop, which we'll get into in the next slide, again, like when they did that, when they added that into mobile, I said this is the first step in Google, kind of distributing the ad units throughout the SERP and not just at the top. And again, this is just another step of them moving in the direction of becoming the destination and wanting to do everything in the SERP. But right now, if you are a retailer, you should log into your Google Merchant account. This is where you can control this. Right now, there's no cost to appear in this experience. I did a few searches. I didn't see it come up for anything. So again, it's about, they're saying that they're, they have, about 1 million online shops that are in this right now. And for the most part right now, it seems to be, like I said, in clothing, shoes, and clothing accessories. Of course, in the future, they're going to expand to more categories and queries once they test it out. Listen, like the experience right here is cool. It's very easy to use. It gives you prices. When you click in, it does get you to the destination. But at the end of the day, retailers should be very wary of this, because Google is basically doing their browsing. Allowing people, to do their browsing in the SERP instead of in your store. So that's something where I think a lot of retailers could see a decrease in traffic in this, but they might see an increase in conversion when people are landing on their product pages, because people have already done their browsing and their price comparison in the SERP, and then they click through to your site and just buy. Now, is that a good or bad thing? Listen, if it makes people more money, of course, that's great. If we're seeing more sales from it, I do think this will lead to a decreased amount of traffic for retailers, especially as it gains in popularity, or if they keep it at all. Of course, Google changes all the time. But at the end of the day, again, this is still another thing with Google dipping their toe into we're going to become the destination pool, and we're going to just handle everything in google.com. Maybe we'll let people click through to your site, but ultimately we're using your site just for data, just so we can bring something in and use it for our own devices and sell people ads. Oh, and also let people buy ads on this that can get in front of you. I don't know. I'm not super comfortable with it. It's one of those things where I get what they're doing. It looks nice. I'm sure when I get the opportunity to use it, it'll feel nice. I just worry about retailers, getting dinged by this. Again, that just might be me, doomsday prophet. But at the end of the day, that's something that I guess we'll just see over time as it evolves. But definitely something for any retailer on the phone. Be very aware of this. Go to the Webmaster Central blog and read about this. Go to your Google Merchant Center and see if you are in the clothing area. Is this something that you can participate in? How do you participate in it? They have all the details there, but this is definitely something to be aware of. And again, another step in Google, towards becoming the destinations. This one was fun. So I'm sure everyone noticed that a little while ago, Google rolled out the same design that they had in mobile results, which had the favicons for each brand, and also an ad unit. It looked something like this, and then they rolled back on it. They got a slew, from what I understand, of bad feedback about how it looked and all that. And now they've reverted to this. If you Google, I just Googled something random, but if you look at the difference between the two, you can see that the favicons are gone. This one, of course, I'm just realizing I'm an idiot that I didn't get one with the ad units, but the ad units are still, coming up there. But at the end of the day, this is another thing where, the ad units are are still there. But this, like they changed like the font and everything, and it's fine. And I don't dislike it, but the thing that's kind of weird here, again, going back to what I was talking about before, is they got rid of the favicons, and I just realized I didn't put this in. They got rid of the favicons, but they kept the black add units. So now the only thing that's standing out is the black add unit, which again, you could argue that back, when they had the green add unit, that the green add unit, stood out. I think with the font change and with the favicon being gone, like when the favicons were there, it blended in even more, don't get me wrong. And so this, I guess, makes me feel a little bit better. But at the end of the day, like the black add unit still stands out quite a bit. From the regular listings. So again, this is just, this is like an odd thing that Google backtracked on. I didn't think it looked that bad. A lot of people had a ton of issues with this, and which is totally fine. But it's just interesting to me that that they changed the new design. They got rid of the favicon, but they kept the change to the add unit, which I know that they were testing out and they were doing anyway. But now to me, it continues to stand out more and more, and it's just something that that they backtrack on. It'll be interesting because by next week the favicons will probably be back. So that's just something to be aware of. Anyway, moving on. One thing. Okay, I do this very, very rarely, and everyone knows that, but I do, for any Conductor customer that's on the line, we have launched our all-new marketplace. And why am I talking about a product feature on the show? That's not what this show is about. And I appreciate everyone giving me a little bit of a podium here. Is that, this is the first feature that I worked in tandem with product with to bring out. And it's the first thing that I've built, and I'm super proud of it. And there's a million people, that were involved in this across CS and product, and they're all awesome. But basically what you can do is you can come, everyone knows that we have a tremendous services team here, and the folks that work with them, know how talented they are. This is a way that I've been working towards where people can request things from our services team with, through the product, and not having to get on the phone or having to send a separate email or things of that nature. So at the end of the day, this is something that, I'm super proud of. If you're a Conductor customer, definitely please go and use it. We're having a lot of good traction with it right now. It can make your workflows easier. It can make the work with your SSM a lot easier. So at the end of the day, this is something that I'm super proud of. I would love any feedback from any Conductor customer, is very, very valuable to me. Again, this is V1 and we're going to continue to evolve it, but we're super proud of this over here, especially on the CS side, that in collaboration with our product team, that, we're the first, technology in our industry that has offered something like this, where you can go in and request something from a human to create for you and get it back to you in a quick amount of time. So go in, request stuff, tell us what you like about it. More importantly, tell me what you don't like about it. Again, I always say that building product has always been something that I've always wanted to get into, and having the ability to do it here at Conductor, again, is a little bit of a dream come true for me. So definitely use it. Let me know if you guys have any good, bad, ugly. Would love to have your voices heard on it. But again, definitely, if you're a Conductor customer, come use the marketplace. If you're not a Conductor customer, I'm happy to talk to you about what it is. Just hit me up through email and I'll tell you the story about how it came to be. And with that, C3 is on its way, everyone. I love C3. It's May 12th through 13th. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, definitely get them. Our speaker panels are bananas. We have amazing people coming in. Definitely, some of the best talk speakers in the business will be on stage here. It's a lot of fun. It's a couple of days in New York City. A lot of fun, good crowd, good conversation. It's one of my favorite conferences. Of course, I work for Conductor, so I'm a little biased, but everyone here remembers that I was a Conductor customer for 5 years. So C3 is where I got my start speaking. Seth gave me the ability to get on stage. It really launched, my ability to get up on stage and talk. So if you have the desire to come and hang out with us, c3.conductor.com. We'd love to see you there. And with that, we have done it once again, 30 minutes. I don't really have anything humorous to say. It is freezing cold in New York City. I am not a fan of the cold. As I get older, my ability to deal with it has deteriorated. Google's annoying. It keeps changing. But at the end of the day, that's the nature of the beast. That's why our jobs are fun. And every time, I say this every month, thank you guys so much for taking 30 minutes with me out of your very busy schedules. I appreciate it so much. I'm always humbled by the amount of people that show up and ask great questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to questions this month. But at the end of the day, if anyone does have any, shoot them over to me, Reinhardt at Conductor.com. I'll let you get back to your days. We will see you next month.